Hi, I'm Dana, and I've gotten quite a few comments over the last year and a half that I've been making videos asking me to talk specifically about imposter syndrome. And it's something that I've kind of put off a little bit because it's tough. It's really tough. So I'm going to start at the beginning, and we're going to, as always, I don't know anything and I purely talk about my experience, and that's all this is. So we're going to start at the beginning of my experience, which is honestly when I first started thinking that I was autistic. And I think this is the experience that a lot of us have, and the reason that we talk about it so much, because it's something that for a lot of adults, I think it just sort of comes along with figuring out we're autistic, is that you get a bunch of imposter syndrome and it really sucks. So it was suggested to me by multiple people that I might be autistic, and that was what made me Google it and look into it and be like, shit, I think I might be autistic. But as many of us have, I'd had my whole life being told oh, you're just depressed, you're just anxious, you'll just grow out of it, you'll just figure it out. So not only is it really quite terrifying to be thinking, oh, this might not be something I'll grow out of, this might be a lifelong this is how I am type of deal, but it's also being what if I'm not? What if I'm just making this up? What if I'm just another idiot that's Googled stuff and I'm going to go to a doctor and be like, I think I'm autistic. And they're just going to be like, no, you're just dumb. You've just Googled stuff and decided you're a doctor and you're just a depressed, anxious person, you know? So it took me a really long time to even bring it up to medical professionals, because I was kind of gaslighting myself, but it was also this imposter syndrome of no, it can't be me. They would have figured it out. Someone would have noticed. Someone would have realised. It wouldn't have taken me 21 years to start thinking, oh, I might be autistic. Other people would have noticed, so I'm just making this up. But the thing is, I'd know if I was making it up, I'd be making it up. Whereas what's actually happening is I'm reading it online and going, oh shit, this all lines up with me really perfectly. You know, I'm not making it up, and yet I was so scared that I was making it all up. And that's imposter syndrome, isn't it? It's this feeling of I know what's right, and yet I still don't feel like I belong in this category, and I still feel like I'm getting it somehow wrong. You know, so for me, imposter syndrome was a big barrier to even starting the process of getting a diagnosis, never mind anything else. It took me probably I want to say a year and a half, 2 years, maybe even 3, to actually go to my GP and be like, look, lots of people in my life are autistic, and lots of people keep telling me that I'm autistic, and I think I might be autistic. And I got real lucky, and the doctor was super great, so I didn't experience too much imposter syndrome there. But if he'd reacted negatively, I don't think I'd have ever brought it up to anyone again, honestly. While I was waiting to get my diagnosis was when I first started to explore autism communities online and go on Twitter and Instagram and find out about other autistic people. And it was one of those things where, on the one hand, it really, really helped. It was really useful. There were lots of things experiences and, you know, general life things that I'd read and be like, oh, this is me. I think actually I might be autistic, because I'm really heavily relating to these autistic people. But it also brought along the other side of things where I was terrified to interact with the community or actually be a part of it because of imposter syndrome, because I was like, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm not autistic? And that's a funny one, because obviously I've ended up doing this and I still feel like that sometimes, but getting ahead of myself, sorry. So as much as I was fairly certain I was autistic and I was waiting to go through the diagnosis process and find out for sure, I still just couldn't accept it about myself. I really wanted to, but the imposter syndrome was just super fucking strong, and I was like, I can't integrate myself into this community in any way until I know for sure that I'm autistic, you know? So I read a lot of stuff, watched a lot of videos, and did not comment or interact on a single thing for several years while I waited to finally get my diagnosis. And I thought that would be the end of it for me. I was like, if a medical professional, I'm going to go in and just answer their questions, just be completely honest and upfront and be like, this is me, help me, tell me what's going on. And then they're going to tell me what's going on, and I'll know for certain from a medical professional, and everything will be fine. I'll be all sorted. And I went in and I was super honest, and the guy was super great, and I was diagnosed as being autistic. He gave me the paperwork on the spot as well as sending some stuff through the post. I had multiple papers from a medical professional saying you are autistic, and I was still but what if I'm not? You know, it was still just this total vibe of like, okay, but what if he's wrong and I'm not autistic? It's just one guy. And suddenly it went from being like, a medical professional has given me their accurate opinion, to be like, one dude said that I'm autistic, and it's like, well, yeah, but he'd been trained to figure that out. Like, this isn't just a guy on the street. And also, it was random people telling me I might be autistic that made me consider it in the first place. So what difference does it make if it is some random guy that's confirmed it? But again, it was so like overwhelming and shit anyway that I was like, I can just not deal with it. I can just be like, okay, I know I'm autistic now, that's what's going on with my brain, and I don't have to like deal with it or do anything or accommodate to myself or anything, you know? So it wasn't so much the imposter syndrome, it was just trying to like gaslight myself to be like, well, if you know what's wrong, you can be normal. Which, normal sucks anyway, none of us are normal anyway, bloody blah, you know, all that stuff. But it also just isn't gonna work when you're autistic. And that meant that, again, I didn't venture any like further into the communities where I could have really done with the support and stuff. And the more I looked, the more I was like, I'm not finding anyone that like really resonates with me, I suppose. You know, like I was finding lots of people where like XYZ experience lined up with mine, but ABC didn't. And obviously that's just the diversity of the autism community. We're not all the same, that's all that is. But I very much took it to heart as like, oh God, what if this means that I'm actually not autistic and I don't, you know, like, the imposter syndrome just came back full force because I was like, yo, I don't fully relate to any of these people. And obviously when you're autistic, that's your brain type, you're an autistic person, so we should all be the same. And it took a lot of education for me to get over that. Like I really, you know, I'd been reading so much about autism, but it was purely people's like life experiences and stuff, so I didn't really know much about autism as a thing. And a lot of learning about that has been really, really useful for me, because even though it's kind of horrible, because obviously a lot of like medical stuff is very like, here are the things autistic people are deficit in, and it can be tough to read sometimes, but it's also just, it helps my imposter syndrome to read medically written articles and be like, oh yeah, that does line up with me after all. Like, it might be a sucky thing to line up with, but it's there and I get it, and that's me. And that brings us up to around the time that I started making videos, because I wasn't finding anyone just like me. And the imposter syndrome like so massively varies for me in regards to like being a part of the community. And I don't honestly like that, like, I've had people message me on Twitter and be like, I really like that you're a voice for the autistic community. I'm not a voice for the autistic community, but I do understand that I've like put myself into the community in a very like, here I fucking am kind of way. And it's, you know, it makes the imposter syndrome worse when it does kick in, because it's like, not only have I been lying to myself, I've lied to 2,000 people online. Like, I'm not even really autistic and I've just lied to, and it's like, but I am autistic, and there's 2,000 people that are relating to what I'm saying and like essentially confirming that I am, and yet I get real anxious about it. And to be fair, some of that comes from the nasty comments people can leave. I'm lucky, I've not received many bad comments, and the ones that I have received are largely like just really trolly, to the point where it's like, dude, I don't care, like, go be mean to someone else. But there has been the occasional comment that's gotten to me. For example, I've had a couple of very lengthy comments that have gone into like full detail of how I can't possibly be autistic because of this and because of this and because I can do this and because I can do this. And although on the one hand it's really frustrating to like, do I really need to explain to someone on the internet that I'm not making eye contact with them, I'm looking into a camera lens, which is very different from making eye contact, which I've also learned how to do to some degree to mask. Like, do I really need to explain this stuff? And then there's other parts of it where I'm like, oh shit, what if I'm not autistic? What if this person's right? What if the medical professional who diagnosed me was incorrect, and this random guy called like fucking TK3247PQZ, what if he's right? He's not, we know he's not fucking right, but it brings back the imposter syndrome full force. You know, and that's purely talking about like being online as like a content creator. In my day-to-day life, one of the big things, like, I've had worse imposter syndrome in the last 6 months than I possibly have at any other point in my life regarding autism, because I've made friends. And it's one of those things where, like, if I have a nice night out, if I go to someone's house and hang out and just enjoy it and have a good time, I get imposter syndrome afterwards because I'm like, I'm autistic, I'm not supposed to be able to do social situations. And yeah, I just absolutely nailed that social situation. I had a really good conversation with this person. I danced in a club the other night, and like, I'll give that, I think it was quite awkward autistic dancing, and I definitely should have moved my arms more, but I just felt very uncomfortable with the idea of moving my arms and really wanted to like keep a hold of my hand. See, there's no need for me to have imposter syndrome, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm in a loud ass club with just my little squishy ear things that some of the guy that came with us that I met tonight gave me, thank God for him. Like, I would not have been able to get through that without those. He really saved me that night. But you know, like, it's these things where it's like, the moment I have fun, the moment I have a good time, the moment my life isn't fucking awful, I'm like, oh God, this has to mean that I'm not autistic. The previous 25 years of awkwardness and terrible social interactions and being bullied and all the other things that pointed to me being autistic, completely out the window because I had one good night. Must not be autistic anymore. And like, I'm laughing and smiling about it because I know it's a bit silly, but as we all know, when you're feeling something, it doesn't feel fucking silly. It feels like the end of the world. It feels heartbreaking and devastating, like it's the worst thing ever, and it fucking sucks. And I think so much of it for me, especially lately in regards to the bout of imposter syndrome, is very much that so much of what it is to be autistic is regarded in our deficits and the things that we can't do and the things that we struggle with. And they're all like completely valid. I talk a lot on here about the things that I struggle with and the things that are hard. But it kind of gives a vibe that like, that's what it is to be autistic. I think it gives a vibe of like, being autistic is like the hardest, most difficult thing, and it's always a tough time and it's always really difficult, you know. And you know, I don't necessarily want to disagree with that because like I said, like, I went clubbing the other night and I think that it was more effort for me than it was for the other people there. You know, I don't want to like, it's not about that, but the thing is, like, a neurotypical would go out and just have a great time and it's all fine. I had a lot of anxiety, I had a lot of worry, I had like vague sensory issues anyway, even with my little earphones in, but I was having a good enough time that I could like, not ignore them per se, but I'd be like, you know, when you just accept that that's happening to you, essentially, you're just like, I'm having a sensory issue, but it's a nice space and I'm having a good time, so I'm not going to fuck it up now just because of this. That kind of situation. And it's like, I'm still having like an autistic experience of going clubbing, essentially. And yet, because I went clubbing and had a nice night, I'm like, oh shit, what if that means I'm not autistic after all? I spoke to people. Like, I went with my housemate, but the other 4 people that were with us, one of them I'd met briefly a couple of times, and like, I like her, like, no issue, like, I wasn't mad about it. And the other 3 people I'd not met before, and that's terrifying for me as a rule. And especially, like, we went for food with them before, so like, we went to their house and we're like, sat around a table, and I've never been good in those kinds of situations, and it worried me straight off the bat. I was like, oh God, this has got to be the first time that my housemate like sees me being a freak. But I had a lovely time. Like, they were really nice people. I really enjoyed the conversation that was happening. Great fucking food, which always makes any dinner a little bit easier when you can just like fucking eat a load of really good garlic bread. I'm gonna dream about that garlic bread. But you know, it's the kind of situation that I'm used to being very, very difficult and really struggling with, and feeling very autistic inside of, and feeling like I don't know how to communicate with people, I don't know how to be a grown up, and it's, you know, it's normally a really fucking tough time. And yet I went in there and I was like, oh God, it's this situation. I got very anxious, and people brought up conversations I was interested in. People, they were nice and good, interesting people, and I really enjoyed it. And that made me feel bad because I was like, yo, like, I'm meant to be autistic, I'm not supposed to be good at social interaction, I'm not supposed to be like good at XYZ. And it's like, yeah, maybe it's not that I was good at social interaction, maybe it's that when you meet nice enough people that have similar enough interests, if you're a little bit awkward, they're not a fucking asshole about it. But it does really suck that, like, you know, we put ourselves into situations where we're very uncomfortable, where we're scared, where we're anxious, just so like we can please other people or just to have a good time or for whatever reason. And we come away from it not only having to like experience how exhausting it is to put ourselves in those situations, like, dealing with sensory issues in those situations and whatever else, and then coming away from it and feeling awful because you didn't experience enough of a difficulty for you to feel autistic, and now you've got to live with imposter syndrome. It fucking sucks and it's super lame and I hate it, and it's real fucking annoying. but my laptop's about to die and I've said what I wanted to say, apart from the fact I didn't miss Friday's video. No one said I had. I don't know why I got so aggressive with that. I didn't miss Friday's video. I want to change my upload schedule. I want to upload on Sundays and Thursdays now. So this is the start of that. That's what we're doing. I didn't miss a video. It's just here now. Obviously, you've just watched the entire video, which means that you should leave a comment if you wanted to. You could do that. I would love if you commented about this, because I haven't given any advice. I haven't been like, here's how to get rid of imposter syndrome, because I do kind of think it's the kind of thing that a lot of us are just gonna experience in bouts. I don't know how to get rid of it. If I did, I'd let you know, but I don't. That's why I keep experiencing it myself. So, wait, did I have anything else to say? No, that's it. So whoever you are and wherever you are, I hope you're having a lovely morning, evening, day, afternoon, week, month, year. And I will see you again in a couple of days on Thursdays. New upload schedule.